one thing to think about with points of engagement is to avoid this concept of death by committee. So this is a common approach that at least when we first started, that a lot of people would do with data governance, is that the former data governance committee, they'd assign sort of 20 functional stewards in their organization, and then they'd meet, bi-weekly or something for 2 hours and sit around and talk about data definitions or policies and things as a group, which is very inefficient way to create any content. Because most of the time you'll have, like 1 or 2 people that might have some input on that of value that everyone has to listen to. And even that, it's not an effective way to do that. So we do recommend, you have your committee, you have your roles, and you can get together and meet. But those meetings should be about, standards and building buy-in and asking people what's working and not working, but not actually doing any real work, except for maybe for the purpose of training. And then all the actual governance stuff should happen asynchronously, where things get routed to people to make decisions. And if there is sort of more than one person, then that could be done, independently, collaboratively, or through like a workflow, iterative approach. So the goal here isn't to basically create a binder on a shelf that nobody's ever going to look at. The goal is to have something that people engage in with content. So this concept of a help desk is something that people really can understand well if you think about this not as a documentation tool or as some magical governance tool, but or process. But think of this as you're implementing the same way you would for an IT help desk. That I'm a new employee, I have a new laptop, I'm trying to connect to my email or something, and I can't get it to work. And so the first thing I might do if I have access to it is to go search the the help desk knowledge base to see, like, I can't access my email, what's going on, and maybe I'll find an article, and that's great. So that's an example of me searching and discovery and referencing that information around this IT support. If not, though, if it's not there, what typically happens in help desk is I don't go like, oh, all right, well, I guess I'm never going to answer this because the knowledge base doesn't have it. No, like the next step is to say, all right, I'm going to submit a request, and that request gets routed into the system, and maybe it gets routed directly to someone who is an expert on the email system and will get back to me, or maybe it goes to some first-tier person who is their job is sort of triage. They maybe aren't an expert on anything. They see it, they might be able to find an answer for me, but their real job is to go find the right expert and connect me to them, right? Then finally, when I'm working with that expert, they figure out what's wrong with my situation. If they're, I'm now satisfied, I got that answer. If they're doing things correctly, they're going to update the knowledge base with the information on how that problem was solved, so that the next person who has the same problem or a related problem will find that information. Great. So what we're recommending is to take that kind of same approach with data. I'm looking at a report. This report says that there's a customer satisfaction score on it, and I was like, where is that score? What does that mean? Where did that come from? And so I go into your knowledge base or your report catalog, and I say, hey, is there a definition for this? And if there is, great. If not, I can submit a request to have that report defined or that definition created for me. Or some request to provide clarity on that report. Or maybe it's I'm searching for a report that doesn't exist and I want to request a new report. Whatever that is, that can get routed either directly to that steward if you've got that set up, or maybe you don't yet, and instead it's going to go to some, first-tier triage person or a group of people that will look at that, try to find an answer for me. If not, they'll go find that expert, get them engaged, and maybe it's the person who wrote that report or someone who knows something about it. They can then create that definition, clarify that information. You get back to me with that answer. Great, I'm satisfied, I'm happy. Hopefully that can happen within a few days or something. And then we're updating the content and the knowledge base with both adding to your report catalog with details about this report, creating a link to your report so that people can reference it in the future, adding whatever definitions need to be for that, and building on that, right? So that approach sort of perfectly matching the help desk. If you think about how to implement that and that process, you're going to get much farther and much more success than that death by committee or all content must be created in a vacuum, or all content must be created before we roll this out. So the point about adoption and use of this stuff is that process, or thinking about that process, it's not, you're striking the balance between the content creation and the use of the data. So if you focus only on content creation and don't focus on how people engage with it, you're not going to have success. If you allow people though to search and they can't find what they're looking for, but you don't give them a way to request and get that content added, you're not going to have success. So you need to have that balance between content and request, and think about how all the different kind of stakeholders in your organization might engage with the content and might be involved in either request or receiving requests, and kind of plan that out. And you don't have to have a perfect plan where you can automatically know everything that happens. If you take advantage of sort of that triage role where you can sort of have a person or a set of people who might, at least at the beginning, can take requests and say, all right, we don't have a clear person who's supposed to do that. I'm going to go find this person, and that's a good way to recruit and build up those pathways. So points of engagement, think about how people search and discover, how they reference, and then give them a clear way to request so that gets routed to things, and how that will build. And then that should feed into your content creation methods, which we talked about. So you end up with what we call this content engagement loop. So people search, they reference, if they can't find what they're looking for, they request. That's going to lead to like adding something to a queue or a just-in-time request. It's going to go to that subject matter expert to create. That might create some emergent content that kind of iterates on that, or maybe maybe there's an approval that goes through to them that creates more content. That's still, of course, we're only talking about the human curation things, the stuff that require the human brain to participate in or require collaboration. You obviously want to do whatever you can with the automated content to get loaded and make sure that that's kind of continuing to be updated and synchronized regularly. Because as soon as that gets out of date, you also lose some trust. All right, there's a lot there. Main focus here, though, is to think of this not just as sort of a project to create content, but as an initiative to create processes to have content get created forever in the future. That's your real goal. So avoid the project versus process trap.